Okay, there we go. Okay. Um, this is an introduction to the Wild Apricot online membership program. And as I mentioned earlier, we've had about, I think, 16 chapters that have piloted it in the last 2 years. And the board made the decision to move ahead and move everyone to the online membership program. So we're going to talk about a number of items, but our first four items that I really want to talk about are to address why we're made the change to Wild Apricot, talk about levels of membership as a little different term than what we're used to. Basically, it's a different types of membership. And then we're going to cover the procedures for use of Wild Apricot, and then some of the support that's available for you in using Wild Apricot. Okay, so why are we making the change? The reason that we are making the change is to create more member convenience. Automatic renewal notifications will be sent out. Online payments are made with credit cards. So our dues are due in February 1st, excuse me, as you all know. And notifications will be sent out in January, reminding those that have not renewed to get their dues in. And I know a lot of you some of you have already started collecting dues, and so that will work. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. The other thing is we had a lot of members that had asked if we would be able to do something to make payments online with a credit card. And so we are able to do that, and that is another one of those convenience factors for our members. Hopefully this in the long run, and once we get a little bit more comfortable with it, it will simplify the process for the chapter and also for the national office in maintaining and managing our membership. Later on down the road, the website, the tool that we're using, this Wild Apricot tool, the website can be moved over to Wild Apricot, and that will mitigate some of the cost of it. Right now we're paying for the use of a host for our website, and Wild Apricot will provide that for us down the road. The same thing with meeting registration. That will also be an integral part of Wild Apricot. And once the program is up and running and everybody's on it, registering for events such as the national conference will be just as simple as a click away to get you registered. All of your information is there. It'll pull all the information in, your personal information for your registration. Eventually, we'll also be able to use newsletters. We'll go out over that, and bulk email options are also available for us. And not only for us at the national office, but each of the chapters, you have the ability to define a list of your annual members or life members or all of your members within your chapter and email out of our system, or you could use it to provide newsletters to your members as well. Each chapter has the ability to access their member data. Currently, the only option you have for that is whatever you have on hand, or you can contact our office and we have to download it and send it to you. This way you have ready access to it right up front. The members and the chapter individual that has the read-write privileges can edit member data or any of the data in the program. Levels of membership, that's the way the program refers to it. Levels of membership, for those of us that have been in ESP, it's different kinds of membership or different types. Most of our members, of course, are annual members. They renew annually. Chapter dues are assessed. We spent over a month trying to get information from all of the chapters to be able to know what your dues were, and so that's a part of the package. If I'm going on as a member and I renew, my chapter dues and my national dues will be there all on a single invoice, and that can be paid either by a check or a credit card. We have some chapters that have a unique situation. I think Oregon is one. Ohio is one where they have essentially a JSEP organization, and within the confines of their university, all of the money is collected, and we have a plan on how to deal with that. So dues can still be paid by a chapter designee, whether that's a membership chair or treasurer. New members can go online and apply for membership right online. The new members, however, will still require approval by the chapter. So if I'm a member, or if I'm an extension employee here in Idaho and I want to become a member, I can go on and apply for membership. My chapter then would approve or deny my membership. And if it's approved, I pay my dues and I'm a member in good standing. This also allows not only for chapter dues, but also your chapter new member fee. Some chapters have that, some chapters don't. The other thing that's a real advantage is that once new members have become a member of ESP in any chapter or as a member at large, then we can instantly get them on the email list, and that's a plus, because sometimes there's several months lag in between, and so this will really speed that up. We want to be able to get information to members, our new members, for scholarships, awards, just general information about the organization, and enhance our communication.
Bob, I have just a question on that, Bob. Does somebody then get notified at the chapter, whoever has administrative rights, that this person is considering to join?
Yeah, I believe that you do get that, and if not, we're in it all the time, and we can let you know as well. Okay, that's a good question. The other levels of membership are life members, and life members. There's an option to invoice for life member dues. You can pay your life member fee. One of the things that this does create for us that's a little bit different. You may be aware that, if for example I paid my dues in January and along about August something happens and I retire, I was able to pay life member fees for the $200 fee that we have, 5 times the national dues, less the current year's dues. We've allowed that. At this point, we've got no way to deal with that other than if a person was to contact us, we could do a refund of that $40, because there's no way to check to make sure that they in fact were in good standing and had paid their dues. The program won't check for that. So that's one thing that's a little bit different. And it does include those chapters that have life member fees. It does include that in there, and then those we send back to the chapter. Member at large. This provides a membership opportunity for people to be involved in ESP in states where there are no chapters. Currently, we have a handful of people that have taken advantage of that. There is a proposed bylaw that you'll be hearing about, particularly if you're at the national meeting and if you are in attendance at the National Council meeting. The board passed a resolution to propose a bylaw change at the 2017 National Council meeting, so that when chapter requirements cannot be met, for example, if your chapter has a requirement of 5 years of membership or of extension work before you're able to become a member, and we've had some people that wanted to present, that wanted to be involved in ESP sooner than that. This would allow them to be a member on the national level, but they still would have to be approved before they would be able to be a member at the chapter level. So that's something that will be up for discussion and may or may not be instituted based on what happens at the National Council meeting. Okay, the next slide is who can be an administrator. We've kind of decided in talking with the board that only those who have been trained will be given the full read-write privileges. Basically, all of the life member and annual member data of active life and annual members at large are on this system, and it's backed up and protected on that end, but we are a little bit concerned about just willy-nilly allowing people access to be able to change data. So what we've decided is that we will have, each chapter will be able to designate one person who will have read-write privileges. We can have several more administrators within the state. However, they will be limited to read-only privileges. So, you know, they can go in, they can look at the data, they can download lists, they can create sort lists, and so on. But it just only the read-write administrator will have the ability to make those kind of changes. And we'll be asking for chapters to let us know who their designee will be. I don't know if any of you have been on the website. The website seems to get not nearly as much traffic as we'd like to have, but you'll notice that we have added an item in the left-hand menu that says membership dues, and that's how you access the wild apricot system. During the pilot, we just gave the states a URL that they could access it, and they pass that along to their members. Now everybody, since everybody is on the system, everybody can access it from the ESP webpage and the homepage on the webpage. And this is what you'll see when you access that. The first item is to pay your ESP membership dues. Many of you have already gotten this user guide for members. It's just a little written document that kind of walks you through the process. And then there's a user's guide for administrators that's a little bit more in-depth. And then after we've had our next session, we'll put the user's guide for YouTube video, which you're participating in as we speak. That will be on our YouTube site, and it will also be linked from here as well. So those hopefully are some things that will help the transition from everybody to going from the old archaic Excel spreadsheet to the online system. When you go into the site, if you're an existing member, you do a login. You can see the circle up there, and when you do that, you'll be, the first time that you go in, you'll be asked for some information that you won't see again. One thing I would caution people is, just like everything else, you all are probably in the same position that I am. I've got over 100 different passwords that I have to do my day-to-day living, and you all are the same way. So when you log in for the first time, you'll be asked to create a password, and you need to write that down someplace where you've got ready access to it. If you forget it, there is a place on there that says forgot password, and it will allow us to do that. So that's the existing members login, and we'll go back to the new members in a minute. But so here I am logging in. I've entered my email. That is, your username is your email. Now, one of the things that we discovered in the process of the trial that we did with the chapters, there's a lot of people that apparently have not checked their email like they're supposed to to make sure that the email that we have on file for you is the correct email that you want to use. So, if you get into a jam, you can always have them get a hold of us and find out what their username is. Or all the membership chairs have the information that you filed with us last spring, and that's where we got all the emails that are on there. So you have access to that as well. It's just the email address that was used in their membership enrollment from last year. So and I mentioned the forgot password. You can see there's the little link that will get you a password if you've forgotten it. First time you go in, you have to agree to the terms of use. If you're curious as to what those are, and quite honestly, I've never read them, but I don't think they're too dangerous. You just check that, and you won't be asked for that again. Excuse me. In this case now, I've logged in as a member. You can see up there in the upper right-hand corner, my username is there. Once you're logged in, if you want to change your password again at any time, you can change your password, or you can log out. The other thing you'll notice down at the bottom, it tells you when we put that username in there, when the people that are new, when they put their email address in there, they're going to be asked to give a password, and it's going to come up and it'll show them that you're already a member. Now, if I wanted to go and edit my profile, I could just click on that edit your member profile link down at the bottom, and that would get me into my profile, and that's what we'll look at here in a minute. You also can log in using Facebook or Google Plus if that's handier for you. That does cut down one more password that you have to remember if you're a user of those social media things. This is the page that shows the profile. You'll notice in the red circle, it says Edit Profile. You click on that button, and you get the ability to edit any of the information that is in there. And there are a certain number of things that are required. Now, you'll notice down at the bottom, the board talked about, as we were talking about the things that we really wanted, and you'll notice down at the bottom something that we've never had or asked for before, things that you're familiar, particularly those of you that work in 4-H, the ethnicity, the race. You probably don't need to fill that out if you're deceased, but we'll take care of that. The reason for dropping, if you are dropped, for example, as a membership chair, if Susan Smith hasn't paid her dues, you can go in there and you can indicate why she dropped. Maybe Susan left extension and did something else, so you can put those reasons in there, and that's just some general information that we decided that we might need to have. We talk about our organization being a diverse organization. We have no clue if we are in fact a diverse organization. And so that was one of the reasons for adding that in, so that it provides us a little insight into whether our organization is as diverse as we would like it to be. The next thing that we have, and this is part of your profile, on the pilot program, we lumped all of the chapters that had dues with $5 together, all of them with 10, 15, there was some with 12, there was some with 18. We lumped them all together in groups so that this list wouldn't be so long. It's one of the things we discovered. The long list may be the most beneficial way to go at it, because it confused people. And now I know that when I want to go in here and I want to sign up for my chapter dues for Idaho, there it is. I click on it, and I've got that. The next thing is down at the bottom. This is something new. This Affinity Group. The Affinity Group is, for the lack of any other better description, we created the first affinity group that we've had. We created this spring, and it's the Latino Affinity Group. And basically what that is it's just simply a group of people who have a common interest. They're working with Latino groups, and they've identified themselves as ESP members that have that interest area. That will allow us to provide them access to people across the country that have a similar interest. As time goes along, other groups that would like to have something like that can simply apply to the board and say, you know, we need to have an affinity group for, you know, for whatever, and that will be added. That will be added to the affinity groups. And you'll notice that it also has some dollars attached with it. They decided that they wanted to raise some dollars within their group to allow them to do some things if they felt that they needed to do that. So that's what the affinity group's about. Okay. Creating a new member. Oops, I need to get rid of that annotation. There we go. Okay, down at the bottom of that page, this, if you'll recall, this looks real familiar. This is the page that came in, the very first one we looked at. And if we were already a member, we could go here to log in, and it would ask us for our email address. But in this case, we're not a member, and we want to become a member. So we can select either a new member, a member at large, or there's, I believe, I've just got Kansas listed here, but I believe Iowa also has this associate member. And essentially what it kind of is kind of a probationary thing where they can be a member of the chapter as an associate member. Once they reach the age requirements or whatever other requirements the chapter might have, then they would move from that into an annual member. So that's where we start for new members. Okay, looks like I got another annotation to get rid of here. Okay, so a new member starting out, they would be asked for their email address, because remember, that's your username, so it's kind of natural that may be the first thing to put in. Then there's a security code, which will keep us from getting hacked by spam and that sort of thing. And so you've got a security code to enter there. And I do believe that those are case sensitive. So whatever those numbers are, capital H5, capital X, J, capital U, and it does have the sound aspect on it, so you can have it speak to you what those letters are, if that's helpful. And then the other thing, the little arrows down below, if you've got one you can't read, you can click on that until you get one that's more clearly visible. Okay. This is the application form. Just basic information: name, address, city, state, zip. Your email was already filled in. It came forward with that other information. Phone number. That's something that we haven't collected in the past, but that was another thing that was added. The drop-down box will give you a list of all the states and chapters. You select the appropriate chapter, and then of course there's the ethnicity, the race information. Again, deceased. The reason we put that in there is in the future, that's how we're going to be able to generate our memorial service at the national conference. We can put in those that were deceased from last year's conference to this year's conference, and we'll get a list of those people. So that works really well. And of course, the other thing is, for a chapter, you can do the same thing. You can go in there and generate a list like that for your chapter. And then there's reasons for dropping. I mentioned that earlier. Retired, left extension, and non-payment of dues. So those are all options. And here's selecting chapter. And if we were going to select the Affinity Group, we just click it in that box. Once once a new member has entered all their information, they will get a screen that looks like this that will allow them to pay by credit card. The other thing that they can do is they can be invoiced, where they'll get a invoice that, as long as you put in an email address, the invoice will be sent to you. And on that invoice, when you get it in email, there's a link on it. You can go right back if you want to pay it online, or you can print it out if you're submitting it for payment by the county, for example. So you've got several different options there. This is what happens when for a new member, and you go back in and you log in. If you've not been approved by the chapter, this little message comes up here that says that your application's been submitted, it's being reviewed, and it'll be activated upon approval and receipt of payment. So, and once you've got that, you can go in and view your invoice, see what's on it, and then pay it. Again, you can indicate you're going to pay by check or by credit card. Okay, for those of you that are administrators, you'll be able to go in and look at the member. This is a new member list, or a list and I have selected as the criteria was new members. And so this list, there just happens that this one lists new members in all the chapters. And of course, you can see that the balance is due, and so on. One of the other things that's really nice about this, and I didn't capture one of these on the screen, but one of the things that I really like about this is Lori Rothstein's email is roth040@umn.edu. If that email was not a good email, underneath of there it would say, it would give a message. It would tell you that the email is no good. And so that would give you an opportunity to follow up with Lori and find out why her email address is no good. And that, we found that's been really helpful. Okay, activating and approving new members. We said that the chapters have to do that. Typically, you know, your people, when you're recruiting new members and you've got someone that says, yes, I'd like to be a member of ESP, probably what you want to do is you want to send them here right away and have them fill out their profile information online and get all of that taken care of. Then as the membership chair, you can go in and look at that list of new members, and you can sort it also by your chapter, so you're only going to get the ones from your chapter, and you look down through there, and it's very simple to approve them. Essentially what you do is, you'll see on this slide, it says member status pending new, and if you are approving that person, you would do edit the membership section, or under the membership tab, and change that from pending to active, approved. And when you're through with that, you want to generate an invoice to make sure that there is an invoice. And we are asking that you do not activate without an invoice. A couple reasons for that. First of all, if you do that, we don't know whether people have paid. The other thing is, we're going to use those people who are new members, and we will use that to capture them and print their membership certificates. So as a membership chair, if you're coming up and you're having your annual meeting October 15th, just drop Gina a line and say, you know, the Iowa chapter is having our meeting on October 15th. Please print up our membership certificates for us for our new members. And she can go in and do it. In the meantime, the membership chair can go in and make sure, if you have 8 people that you've invited to be members, that all 8 of them have their information in there. Okay?
Bob, is this going to be for every chapter? Say our chapter doesn't have a minimum, certain length of time that they're an extension.
Right.
We would still have to comply with this. I mean,
Yeah, if you don't have a time, anybody can go on as a new member, and you're going to just approve them because
okay.
you've asked them and they're approved. It really doesn't make any difference whether your chapter has a 3-year, a 5-year, or 0 time frame. They're still a new member, and they just still apply, and they're approved as a member of your chapter. We don't want to interfere with the chapter selection of who you want to be member in your chapters.
Okay, thanks.
Okay? All right. And I put a note down here. Don't worry about any duplicate invoices, because we can go in and look at those invoices. And if there's a duplicate there because the person has created an invoice and you generate an invoice, we can tell right off the bat that that's happened, and we'll just delete the duplicate one and we'll be fine. Okay, approving new members. I've already alluded to this, but you as chapters have the responsibility of approving new members. We're not going to say who can be and who cannot be in your chapter. And again, because there's such a variety of requirements, there's just no way to be able to screen that. So that's the only way we're able to do that, is for you as chapters to approve them. Once a member's been approved, do not change them to an annual member. When Gina prints their membership certificate, she will change them to an annual member. That's the only way we know that we've got everybody covered. Okay, and as soon as, if I join today and I'm a new member and it's the end of August, and Gina prints a certificate out next week, she will change me, and I will from that point forward show up as an annual member. So that's something you just need to be aware of. And again, we'll do the new member certificates, and we also we're going to continue to assign ESP member numbers like we have in the past. So we need to do that, because there's no way you would have any idea what number to use. Okay, let's kind of shift a little bit. We've talked about new members. Now we need to gear up for the new membership year. And typically we have said that we would accept membership even though it's due on February 1st. We would accept membership up to the 31st of August. And then we took the month off in August, and before we would accept any more. And under this system, you've actually got more flexibility to do that. Because, for example, if we were to go into my record as an annual member right now, I paid my dues in 17. It says that my next dues come due on February 1st of 2018. If I paid my dues today, it would then roll that and would say my next dues are due on 2019, which is really nice, but it does create a bit of a problem, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, just so that you're aware of it. Now, once you're ready to start your new membership campaign, and all of the data that's in there now assumes that everybody on your list of your chapter paid their dues this last year. That may or may not be the truth. So, but just to make it clean and easier for you to start, everybody who's listed as an annual member, their next dues are due on February 1st. But what you'll need to do as a membership chair is to go into your list of annual members and renew people. And when you do that, one of the choices, and we'll see it in a minute on the slide, but one of the choices is to generate invoices. And you really must generate invoices for your members. And at that point, you can email those if you want to. If you are doing your annual meeting the second week of September and you want to get this out of your hair, you can actually email the invoices anytime prior to that, and your members will have their invoice and know what their dues are for that year. If a member whose membership has lapsed and they didn't pay last year, but they're going to pay this year, you need to be sure to edit their new renewal date, because what happens is if I didn't pay my dues in 17, my renewal date is February 1 of 17. And so if you don't change that and I pay my dues in October, it's going to pay last year's dues. And so you need to make that change in there if you've got somebody who has their dues have lapsed. Probably the easiest thing to do is just to go through at the end of your membership campaign and make sure that those are all rolled forward. And typically you don't have a huge number of people that don't pay their dues. You'll have some, but not a huge number, and so you can just go in and change those. The other thing is, and we'll talk more about this also, if a member is archived, you'll need to unarchive their record before you proceed. Okay, here's the renew button that we talked about. So if you click the renew button to select a member as being a potential renewee for the next year, then they will be reminded when the renewal notice reminders come out. And again, those reminders come out, or we have it set up. They come out, I think, the 1st of January, the middle of January, the first of the week before February 1st, on February 1st, and a week after February 1st. So nobody has the excuse that they weren't reminded. That's assuming, of course, their email address is good. And the other thing is, as soon as you are paid, you don't get any more reminders. So, the easy way to cut out on the email is to have your dues paid. Okay, we've gone in and done the renew button. It's important if you go down, that gives you a chance to go down and check. And I mentioned down, and it's not on this screen, it's a little farther down, about checking the date that their renewal date is, and you can check that right there when you're doing the renewal. You can check the once you've got their information, everything's okay, which 9 times out of 10 you're not going to have to do anything. But if you do change something, always remember, if you don't press save, it's not saved. Okay, so renewing annual members, now we've hit renew, and it tells us that we can generate an invoice. And earlier I told you need to generate that invoice. Just click that button, and it will automatically generate an invoice. And we'll look at an invoice in a minute. Here's where I was telling you about this renewal date due on. This renewal date is due on 2/1/18. If it was 2/1/17 and they paid in October, it would change it to 2/1/18. So you need to just kind of take a peek at that as you go through them. Okay, this is an invoice. So now it's got the name on it, Bill Adams' name, and this happens to be a member application, but it's got the balance due, and then down below there's a breakout. Membership application for a new member. Remember, our regular rates are $40, $45 for a new member, and in this case, the chapter member dues are $10. They had no additional fee for a new member, so it's all the same. Now, once you get through with this, you can go up here and just hit email, and it will shoot it right to that person, and they'll have their invoice. And again, when they get that invoice, it's in an email. The bottom of that email is a link to go and pay. So they go and pay. The money is dropped right into the ESP account, and then we tally that periodically and send the chapter money. Okay. Okay, dues payments. They can be made from the invoice by an individual member paying with their credit card. The information, if you recall, it showed our address, so they can send us a check that's fine. Or in the case of those where that's not feasible, the chapter treasurers can pay for multiple members by check. And it must be accompanied by a list of members and the amounts paid per member in the check, because when we get that, Gina's going to go in and credit those payments to their account so that we're sure that they get credited. Okay, it's still an option to manage dues payments just as we did in the past, just like I mentioned on the slide before, with the chapter collecting the dues and sending the check to the national office, along with a list of members included in the payment. However, if this is the procedure you choose to use, all the dues from your chapter must be handled this way. It's just way too confusing to have you send 5 in and 10 pay online. If you're going to do it, everybody's going to do it online, then you need to do it online. Now, the only exception to that would be, and what we'll do, if you do that, we'll change the amount of chapter dues to 0, because otherwise you're going to have to send us your $20 of chapter dues plus the national dues, or say $60 if that's what your dues are, and then we have to turn around and send it back. But in the system, you just can't mix and match them. So the only other way to do it would be to send, if the national dues are 40 and yours are 20, you could send us the entire 60, and then we will refund you the 20 in a check. If that works for you and you want to do it that way, we will be glad to do that. Chapters must, however, notify our office if they choose to use this method of payment. Is that clear? Okay, I'm taking that as a yes. Okay, again, this is what we get for an annual member that goes in and renews. You get the invoice. You have the opportunity to pay online, just like the new members. Okay. Now I want to talk a little bit about data editing. The one thing that's really nice about this is, currently a member has to send you any changes to their personal information. You have to remember to write it down, change it in the spreadsheet. You have to remember send the spreadsheet back to us for us to remember to get it into the database. So you can see there's several different opportunities there for errors, because every one of us are people and people make errors. So that increases that option. Now, with this system, as a member, one of the first things we looked at was editing our member profile. So you can go in there and make changes. So if your email changes, you can go in and make that change. If you do change your email, it will change your user ID. So keep that in mind. The chapter administrator that has the read-write privileges can edit anyone's data at any time. And then chapter administrators that have read-only privileges will not be able to edit any of the information, but they can view and download any of that information at any time. And I think when we get into that portion of it, you'll see that could be very valuable. Okay, archiving members. The fee that we pay for using this program is determined by the number of members identified as active or inactive. And back in the profile, it shows you can put active or inactive. And basically, everybody should be active. I guess I'm not sure why we would have inactive, because we have up to 5,000, and we're going to be getting up there close to that by the time we get all the life members and all of our active members in. So that's how our fee is determined. So if we go over that 5,000, our fee goes up a bunch. Our archived members do not count towards our fee structure, but they do remain on file in our permanent record of members. Never, 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 never delete any archived members. You cannot delete a member that is not archived, so that's not an issue. But you can delete archived members, and I think we'll see that in a minute. And it doesn't make any difference whether they're deceased or not. That's a no-no. We don't archive, or we don't delete members. Here's a member record. Here's the contact information. You can see here's an edit. You can go in and edit that, and you can edit any of this information. The membership one, I'm not sure that I put a membership tab in here. Did we? I can't remember. We'll see. But the membership tab is one that you would also probably use. At this current time, these other ones probably aren't. Email settings, you might use email because, again, like I said, you can select a list like of your chapter members, and you can run an email out through this. And it's got a nice, there's some templates that you can use, so you can kind of pretty it up and make it a little bit fancier than just an email to a listserv or a distribution list. But this is how you archive. You just click on archive, and they are visibly gone, but not physically gone. Now, so you've got somebody that didn't pay their dues this year, so we archive them. And next year they come back and they say, I screwed up. I didn't pay my dues last year. I would really like to pay my dues and get involved again. Here's how you do that. You go on the search, and you'll see under, this happens to be under contacts, you'd get the same thing under members. For our purposes, contacts and members are basically the same. If we wanted to have people that we were going to send information to that were not members, then we could add those folks in here. We are also charged for them. But you'll see this little under the simple search there, the circle shows that that's a filter, and the filter in there, one of the default is all, so that will look at all records except archived or not. And that's something they just changed in one of their recent updates, because if you had 50 members and you had 10 archived, you had to wade through those extra 10 archived members. They were grayed out like this particular one, this Bob Aaron is. But at any rate, you can go in and do that drop-down box, and you can find archived. And there are several other, 3 or 4 other choices in there. I can't remember right off the top of my head what they are. I've not used them, so I'm not that familiar with them. The other thing that I'll point out here is, for example, let's say this one only happens to have one person in it. But if for some reason you wanted that information locally, you notice here is an export button, and that export button will allow you to export that to an Excel file. And you can export, you've got the choice of which fields you want. So if you just wanted their name and email address, you could do that, or whatever you want. So that's really handy, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Okay, once we found the individual, this Bob Aaron, we clicked on his record, and then we've got the button up here that says Restore from Archive, and we can do that. You'll notice right next to that is the Delete button. Again, never, 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 ever delete a member, because this is our permanent record of the membership. So make sure you don't delete anybody. Okay. Again, just kind of a review. Editing data. The chapter administrator with read-write privileges can edit all of the membership data. Keep in mind that the risk of losing data when you're editing, bad stuff can happen, and does happen to all of us from time to time, which is why we're limiting the read-write access to one person per chapter. We just kind of felt like after the trial era that we better limit it to one person from each chapter. And again, we can allow additional administrators, but they would be just on a read-only basis. And finally, on editing, remember that changes are not recorded if they're not saved by clicking that save button. And everyone's got it, and you will forget it sometime. I've forgotten it more than one time myself, And Gina's grinning, she has too. So where the membership data is stored. Annual members are stored online. Our member at large members are online. Associate members are online. Life members with email addresses are stored online. We are going to continue to maintain hard copies of life members with no emails, and those will be done like we have in our Access database. And as those folks pass, we will drop them off, and we'll add them to our memorial list on an annual basis. But there was really no reason to put them on the online system, because there are a substantial number. There's probably about 1,600 that don't have. That's the list that we send the newsletter to by paper, and that list is continually shrinking. But if the only advantage of having them on a life member on the online system is being able to email them. And if these guys don't have email, there's no
we can't put
benefit.
them on anyway with no email because that's
So,
their login.
oh, yeah, and we can't put them on if they don't have an email address. So again, members with dues that have lapsed should be archived, and we've shown you how to do that. Members that have been archived can be unarchived. We've shown you how to do that. Again, we're charged based on our active and inactive membership only, but the active and inactive unarchived membership. So currently our numbers are getting close to the next level, which would cause and the next level up is a significant jump in the fee. So that's why it's important to archive those lapsed members. Okay, developing lists and reports. The system allows administrators to sort and filter membership information by any one or more of the data fields, such as chapter, membership type, dues paid. There's like about 25 fields. You can list based on any one of those fields. Using the data, the system actually does not generate any reports, but the administrators can generate personalized mailings using the system. So you can create a list and personalize it. And it's like anything. You can't get anything more out of something than you put into it. So for example, if you're in the Pennsylvania chapter and you want to be able to contact your board of directors, you can identify them as being board members, and then when you go in and do your sort, you can go to the chapter and pull out board of director list, and there you've got your email addresses all together. It's kind of like a distribution list, but that's another option of some things that you can do with it. And then data can be downloaded in Excel. If you need the data to physically manipulate it, you can bring it down and do that. You can do mail merges with Word and so on, then out of the Excel file. Saved searches. We're going to create saved searches for each chapter for your annual members, your life members, and your new members. And they will be listed as such: ID for Idaho, annual members; ID, life members; ID, new members. So whatever the two-digit alphabetical designator is for your state, we'll list them that way, and annual members and life members and new members. Now, we ask that you do not save additional searches. Remember, we've got 41 chapters in here times 3 searches. Now, if you happen to be Arkansas, Alaska, or Alabama, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of difference to you. But if you're Wisconsin or Wyoming, 120 is a long way down the list. So you can save a search if you're going to use it 2 or 3 times in a session. But when you're through, please clean up your mess and delete it. They're really easy to create, and it's not a big deal. So, and we'll show you a little bit about that as we go through it. Okay, these are not all. This is the contact related fields that are available for you to add as search criteria. So, for example, a common one might be member of state and chapter. So that's going to give everybody out of your chapter. And then the next step, once you've made that determination, is then to choose an operator. You know, state and chapter is ID/theta. And you can then you check the specific filter. These are all drop downs. So this drop down state and chapter, you know, one of the things that's really frustrating, you know, unless we do a drop down on this, I might put in ID, or I might put in Idaho, or I might put in theta, or I might put ID theta, or I might put theta ID. And so then sorting and doing some of those things are an absolute mess. So the ones with the drop down, we've dictated what the choices are. And so you'll need to do that. Then you can add a second criteria, in this case, membership level. I didn't talk about the operator. There's is not, contains, does not contain, all of those typical type of operators that you use in sorts. So those are drop downs, and you can use those as well. And then of course, as I said, you've got the choices in this particular one is membership level. You've got that. And you can, this little add criteria, the little green plus here, you can add criteria. It's an infinite amount of criteria that you can add. And then when you decide that, geez, that kind of screwed things up, and I can't use that as part of it, then you've got the remove button over here, and it will remove only that line item. So if we wanted to remove the membership in order to look at everybody from the Idaho chapter, we just hit remove, and it would remove that. Once you've got your criteria in, then you have to come over here to search and do a search, and then it will function. And then you can do a save. Now, just a caution, and this comes in blank, so you would have to type in ID hyphen life member in order to overwrite the life member search that we're going to have saved in there for you. But if you save that, just make sure that, as I said, when you're through using it and you leave the session, if you would, please erase it so that we don't get a ton of them. And periodically, we may go in and erase them for you if they're left there, just out of a courtesy to everybody else. The other thing that's important to remember, you can see everybody's stuff in here if you're an administrator. And likewise, everybody can see your stuff. So, one thing that I forgot to mention that, I'll go back, let me make a note of that, because I want to show you how to get into this administrator mode. Okay, and here's deleting searches. Here's how you delete them. You just click this red X or the delete search, and that will delete them. Well, that in a nutshell, that took 59 minutes. That's pretty close to an hour. I would be happy to answer any questions, and while you're thinking about that, I'm going to go back to this first one and see if I can show you where the sign in for administrator is. Anybody have any questions? Is anybody there?
Are they muted?
I guess I don't show that. When you log in, after you're logged in, up here in this corner, there will be a button that says Admin View, and that's how you get into that administrative part of the program. And if your username, have you been identified as an administrator, you'll be able to get into it. Okay. Question was asked. We have to generate invoices one member at a time. Unfortunately, yes, that's correct. It would be really nice if you could do all your renewals and just have it generate them all, but I've not been able to figure that out, that you could do it that way. The next question is, what is the deadline to select administrators? You know, I really don't have a deadline. The deadline is really for you. It isn't for us. We can do it anytime, but as soon as you need to be able to get on as an administrator, then you'll need to have them by then. Okay, and Christy asks how you designate an administrator. I'm a little bit reluctant to tell you that, but yeah, if you designate them, you can just send us an email. Oh, I see what you're saying. I was interpreting your question a little differently. If you'll call the office, we will, and tell us who it is, we will designate that person as an administrator. And as I said, you know, you can have 2 or 3 administrators if you want to, in addition to the read-write one. If you've got, you know, if you've got 2 or 3 people, certainly probably your treasurer, your membership chair, your president, maybe your president-elect, they could have administrators. When we were doing the pilot, we were limited to 25 administrators, and it got a little tense there with 16 chapters, and you know, so you don't have to email the invoice, but once you've created it, it's going to show it to you. It's just as easy to email it, just a simple click. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, do we have to email the invoice? And the answer is you don't have to, but you know, it really is probably a smart thing to do that. Any other questions? Okay, Tom Ward said, looks to me like that I go to the ESP national site, navigate to log in to the membership stuff. I don't see the member admin login button. It just automatically logs me in, giving my admin rights. That's probably because that was the last way you entered, Tom. And also up in the button, there's one that says public view, and that will take you back to the public view. Okay, if there are no more questions, we'll sign off. And thanks a bunch. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. I know you're all very busy, and we appreciate your efforts.